a pretty good job putting the chains on. They're staying on.